me some email photographs, which I was absolutely touched and thrilled to receive. Not associated with the annual plan in any way, I hasten to add, but I really appreciated that. And I know I haven't responded yet, but I will. But I wanted you to know that they've been received, and I was really touched. So thank you.
Thank you. And is there somebody who could hand out some information for us?
Yep. Someone will come down.
Would that be possible? Just thank you. Well, we would like to thank you for allowing us to address our submission today. And also, we would like to give you a very heartfelt thanks for your service, and especially to those who are not going to stand again, with due regard to Leanne and Andrew Turner, our counselor for Banks Peninsula. You'll be sorely missed, all of you.
Can I also acknowledge Mike Norris too? I didn't recognise you behind your mask.
Yeah, this is Mike.
Lovely to see you as well.
Mike Norris is the chairman of the Civic Trust, but I'll lead off with a very brief overview of the submission in front of you. Akaroa's landscape is embedded with a nation's bicultural history. Ngāi Tahu and Anuku Runanga have already discussed the importance of landscapes as cultural narratives, and the Civic Trust supports their submissions. Landscapes are direct links to ancestral connections and historic associations. The Trust has supported Anuku Runanga's effort to protect and recognize the importance of Takapaneki for many years, probably 2 decades now plus. And the site was fundamental to the signing of the Treaty of 1840, and the level of history contained in Akaroa overall is fundamental to the foundation of Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'd like to thank you for reinstating the museum's funding. The museum contributes to the town's economy, the well-being of the community, as well as hosting visitors and school groups. It also enjoys a very close association with Anuku Runanga. The museum is a council facility that is open 7 days a week, and it's staffed by 3.2 FTE positions. It administers 3 historic buildings and presents a minimum of 3 exhibitions per year on a very modest budget. The Brittermar Memorial is one of the most important historic landmarks on the South Island. It is located next to the Takapaneki Historic Reserve, and both sites are administered by Christchurch City Council. The 2 sites are separate, but within sight of each other. As New Zealand history is taught in schools, national attention will soon focus on both historic locations. The Takapaneki Conservation Report, which I have a copy here, which you will have seen in your agenda on Wednesday, the full report, contains a list of recommendations regarding the historic Brittermar Reserve. Few have been enacted. The site lacks disabled access, interpretation, landscaping, and conservation measures. In our view, the Brittermar Reserve requires the same care, consideration, and respect as the Takapaneki Historic Reserve. Another issue is the return of cruise ships, likely in October 2022, although that's not confirmed. Akaroa will experience once again 20 or more buses plus large vans transporting cruise passengers to Akaroa on day trips. The town needs a designated drop-off and pickup point and a parking area to avoid dangerous congestion. There has been no consultation with the community, and Christchurch, New Zealand, with regard to the destination management plan, has yet to commence its effort, although I think it may be happening in the very near future. They've had 2 years, but maybe we'll see something out of it. The solution is to implement, instead of waiting for a destination management plan, to implement a new traffic management plan in the short term with an allocated space for bus and van parking at the recreation ground. A private shuttle is readily available for those not wishing to walk, and the updated traffic plan would require minimal effort. I also would like to note that there's the Christchurch transport plan, but it does not seem to take into account the impact of tour buses traveling between the city and Akaroa or exhaust from massive cruise ships with regard to pollution. The council needs to be reminded, in my view, that it agreed to reduce emissions by 50% in 2030 and net zero by 2045, as well as declaring a climate change emergency. We assume this includes Akaroa and the peninsula. The Trust supports the refurbishment of 40 Rue Jolie, which is a very historic little cottage. It has remained neglected for too many years, and I also, before I turn it over to Mike, I'd like to invite you to visit the Akaroa Museum. I think you'll be coming over to Akaroa on June 24th for the unveiling of the Po. So as you leave town in the afternoon, please pop into the museum and see for yourself what the facility has to offer. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to Mike.
Well, thank you, Victoria. And may I repeat your kind words to two of our departing councillors, Mayor Leanne and Andrew Turner, our indefatigable ward member. I'd have to say we're going to miss you. I hope your replacements are equally as accessible. And I've enjoyed opportunities to come and talk to a full council here. And normally we've got something really big to grizzle about, but today it's a different one. So having said farewell to you and all the best for your futures, and I know that you've got a very heady mountain of submissions to get through this afternoon, and I should think you're quite punch drunk by the end of the afternoon. So I just wanted to focus on two things that my very able Deputy Chair has illustrated for you. And I'll start with this booklet, Takapaneki. Are all you councillors familiar with this book? Because it's been out for a little while. And I know that most of you will be very familiar with Takapaneki because when we had the special meeting prior to the purchase of the Red House, there was an internal council report added to reports from the Civic Trust and also from Anuka Runanga, which detailed the significance in New Zealand's history. So I echo what Victoria says, that there's lots of works going on in Stanley Place at the moment. If you come to Akaroa and you drive to the southern end of town, you'll see enormous amount of activity, and the City Council could be proud that together with Anuku, the much vaunted development of that site is happening. Luckily, not like the development of the site that would have been possibly taken on a couple of decades ago, when it was decided it would be ideal land for a subdivision and some houses could be built there. That was not under your term, Leanne, but it was an unfortunate thing, and full credit to the Civic Trust and Victoria and a few eminent historians for pointing out that it would be quite crass to put houses on this very tapu site. So now that the works are going ahead, I echo what Victoria is saying. The Brittermar Memorial is actually a disgrace at the moment. It really lacks interpretive panels. It lacks some care and attention. And for the amount of money that would be involved in putting that right, I think it's something the council could certainly look at alongside the 5,000 extra seats for the stadium or the tinkering with Lancaster Park. I would think it was a very small budget, and it would transform the area, make it user-friendly for disabled people, and it would be in tandem with Takapaneki, part of raising the profile of this area in the whole of New Zealand. It is possible that second only to Waitangi, Takapaneki would assume the significance of one of the most important bits of our our bicultural history, dividing it from 1840. So I hope the council will find the funds and the resources to make the most of that wonderful resource it has at the Brittermar Memorial. And that leads into the museum, because tied to the visits to the Brittermar and to Takapaneki is a museum. So thank you to the council for, shall we say, pulling back on the decision to cut the budget and, in fact, reinstating it, and possibly with a little more for the capital fund. We do appreciate that, and we don't want to be seen as Akaroa always having a whinge about something. On the subject of transport, it's been suggested that an alternative to tour buses rocking up to the village and just parking under the trees on Beach Road should be looked at, and I understand there is a possible initiative using land adjacent to the Grand Hotel. It's owned by the operator of the Grand, but he is already talking to the community board about the possibility of having that site made available for the purpose of bus parking, which would alleviate an enormous amount of congestion. You saw with these photographs here, 3 vehicles side by side blocking the main street. And yet, I believe the City Council Traffic Department claim there is no problem. There is a problem, and it needs to be addressed.
I'm going to have to ask you
I've
to
finished.
come. Oh,
Yes.
Well, if we slide over, I have 5 minutes, and I'm happy to share it with Mike.
Oh, that's
oh,
unusual.
yes, so you have. You have a Victoria Andrews seat.
Yes, I do. And it's pretty much the same.
No. Well, the two have been very aligned. So, just carry on.
And if there are questions?
Well, I was going to leave time for questions, so I'll do that, because I've said as much as I want to today. I wish you a very good afternoon for the rest of the submissions you have to sit through, and I want you to go home thinking Takapaneki. It's very important. Thank you.
It is. Thank you.